What's up,
Josiah,
man?
what's going on, brother? Welcome to the Superhuman Life.
Yeah, I'm pumped to be here, dude. Thanks
Dude,
for having me, man.
yeah, man, I'm glad we finally got a chance to make this happen. I know we connected early on when I first launched this, and that just kind of, you know how things are. I mean, you've been in the space and for a really long time, but super excited, man, to kind of jump into, you know, your work and your story because like so many of the guests here, and really this has kind of been for me as well. It's like we started on this fitness journey at a very, very young age. But this was really kind of the gateway to, I'm going to use your words here, to true transformation.
Yeah.
And it's so much deeper than the physical, the physical part. So we're really going to get to that here and kind of unpack some of that. But I think the best place to probably start it's kind of like your journey into fitness. Way back when Josiah was just a little guy. What was kind of that path, and what were some of those first initial steps that you took to get yourself into fitness, and what was kind of some of the motivating drivers back then?
Yeah, man. So my fitness journey kicked off with a strong desire to have an anchor in my life, right? Because I kind of felt like that guy who, I'm going to use an analogy. I watched this movie called The Lighthouse last night. It was super weird, but it was super cool at the same time, because it was kind of like watching someone go through this phase of like losing their mind, basically, right? And that's kind of how I felt. I felt like someone at sea, kind of like got all this rockiness, this storm after storm. And this is when I was younger. This is when I was in my 12, 13 years old. Parents were going through a divorce. My dad was an addict. My mom comes from a long history of addiction. I have siblings who are addicts. So it's cool that I'm on this show now, because that's really where everything started, right? I needed something that I could pour energy into, that I would get something positive in return. Obviously, I'm putting it into much better words than
Yeah, I
I.
was gonna say, like, I mean, were you that like aware at the time, like you knew
No,
that's what it was, or
had no
um,
idea.
it was
Had no.
more an outlet to kind of run from
I
the
was your classic kid who saw a picture of Arnold
okay,
and said, "That's what I want to look like." And I also want to be able to play baseball looking like that, which is impossible, right?
yeah,
The real game changer was a couple things, kind of at the same time. I grew up in an abusive home. My dad was very physical. Like, he basically, we were either, when we were playing together, we were wrestling, right? And when we were punished, we were getting beat, right? So it was like a very physical environment. And my dad was still is a very jacked guy. And at the time, I looked at my dad as like the ultimate adversary, someone who physically could basically dominate me in every part of my life. And so I knew, and he would plant these seeds, like, you need to start working out if you want to ever get tough enough to, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so I had these seeds already planted, and what ended up watering these seeds was getting into sports and starting to live for sports. And guys who I played sports with, some of them were genetic freaks. Like, some of these guys were so jacked and so big in high school and middle school that I was like, I got to do something to change my body, both for my home environment and for my fun sports environment. And so I started working out with a buddy who was like deep into fitness at the time. We were young guys, but like freshman in high school,
mm,
he had bought all the workout books. He was like, dude, we're going to get jacked. Like, this is going to be crazy. And so I started getting into it just for sports, right? So, you go lift for like 10 minutes before practice, the drill, like you played
yeah,
sports,
yeah,
right? So like you go lift and then you go play, and then it's kind of the deal. But over time, I started to really fall in love with the process of seeing your body change, getting stronger, and feeling just more confident, man. Like, be honest, girls started to notice, right? They're like, "Oh, wow, you're starting to, you're getting bigger, dude. Like, whatever, like, what's going on?" And then guys, of course, like, start to notice. I remember from my sophomore year to my junior year in high school, I gained like 25 pounds, and they started calling me Juice because they thought I was on steroids, right? This is no joke, true story. I wasn't on steroids. I think I took some creatine, like Nitrotech or Celtech or whatever, but I just was, starting to grow. My body was changing. And, my parents going through the divorce was a huge moment in my life. It was very scary. It was also very relieving at the time, because my dad was getting out of my life, and that was an abuser that was gone. And now I had to really latch on to something. And sports was great and it was highly competitive. I mean, I played against some of the best athletes in the world in different sports. It was fun, but I knew in the back of my head, like there was that subconscious voice, not even subconscious, a small conscious voice saying, dude, working out is your thing. Like I really was dedicated to it. Like I remember in high school, I would go work out every single day after practice.
Were you already thinking career, like fitness career back
I didn't
then?
even know what career
Okay.
and fitness looked like. I actually, truth be told, I had plans to become a lawyer. That was my goal.
Wow.
Because in my head, I pictured this lawyer as someone who had money. I came from very, very poor upbringings, military family, 6 kids. My mom didn't work. We moved every 2.5 years. Like I was the oldest. So of course I was the guinea pig for everything. Like, oh, well, we didn't do things right with you. So now your brothers are going to get treated better. That kind of stuff. Right.
It's so funny you say that because our stories there's so many parallels here. I wasn't in an abusive home. I kind of look back now, we were probably lower middle to kind of middle class. Like we didn't go without, but I lived in a part of town and I played sports with a lot of kids that were way better off.
Sure.
So I remember having a coach when I was like 10 to 12 years old, like in the majors little league. He would have us over on Saturdays after the games, and he just had this huge, like, I mean, there's no house in my neighborhood that even compared to, you took 4 houses, it would equal one of his.
Sure.
And I knew from back then, I was like, wow, okay, so there's this divide between those that have and then those that don't. And I remember thinking like, okay, what is his name was Bob Hall. I remember it like he's one of the coaches that just had so much, impact on me. Like, what does Bob do? Like Bob was a lawyer. So, when you asked me when I was 12 years old, like, what do I want to be? I want to be a lawyer because I want to have a house like Bob has. So,
Yeah,
so it's so funny. I want to ask you one thing before we move on here, because I know that, your relationship with your dad over the years, it's kind of fluctuated. There's been moments where you guys have been completely, apart, and then you tried to bring him back. And I know fatherhood is something that's extremely, passionate about you with having 2 boys now. Back then when you first got started, because you mentioned your dad was super into fitness and he was jacked and fit, did you think at the time of when you were first getting started, like this was maybe a way for you to bond with him? Was that kind of going on in the back of your mind?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that before. And the truth is, yeah, it was. I remember distinctively, there's a moment in my fitness journey, like a moment that we all have these moments where like you kind of fall in love with it a little bit. Right. Yeah. One for me was my first bicep pump for sure, dude. Like I'll never forget that. I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
It's like that line from Arnold in yes. Pumping Iron.
Arnold is the man. Always, forever will be one of my heroes, but like, he's not right. He's not wrong. Like it's so good, right? Like it just feels so good. But anyway, there was another moment. My dad, I remember we had a Thanksgiving 10K. Actually, it was a turkey trot. They called it, and where I grew up, and I was I think 13 at the time. This is right before my parents like officially parted ways. Yeah. And my dad had these occasional like I probably talk poorly of my father more than anything, but there were these occasional blimps that I remember that there was some bonding over fitness, especially. And one of it was this turkey trot. And he said, look, we're going to go run. I'm going to go run. If you want to run, let's go run. If you beat me, I'll buy you breakfast. Right. And now keep in mind, buying me breakfast was a big deal because we were broke, man. Like we would never go out to eat ever. So he was like, I'm going to go buy you, I think it was like IHOP or something. Right. And I was like, dude, I almost died in that race, bro. And I won. Now, here's the funniest part, just a funny side story. I remember because the 10K is like 6.3, I believe, 6.3 miles. And I remember 4 or 5 miles in, I had lost him in the crowd to start the race. So I'm thinking I'm way ahead of him, right? I get to about mile 5 and I see like 100 yards ahead of me. He's up there. Keep in mind, I was pushing it, dude.
Yeah.
Right. And I was in shape at the time because I wrestled, played ball and all that stuff. And so I was running a lot. And so I just sprinted, man. I caught up to him and just blazed by him. And I didn't look back because I'm not looking back because I might get caught. Yeah. And I won. I won the race and he took me to breakfast. I remember that was like one of the coolest. As a kid, there's probably no better feeling than after getting your ass whooped for years by your dad.
Oh, beating your dad the first time at something.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, oh my gosh. So anyways, man, yeah, I mean, fitness was a common bond, and we actually had there was a moment where we had reconnected after they got divorced for just a very small period of time. And I remember the only thing we did together the time that we reconnected was went to the gym. Yeah, so fitness was definitely an olive branch in a way between me and my dad. I wouldn't say it has done a whole lot for our relationship because of all the things that have taken place, but looking at it now from me to my kids, you know, sometimes as a dad, you're just like, how do I connect with my kids? Sometimes, right? Because you're just like, these are like creatures that have their own personalities. Like, you're just like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. But fitness is a great way to connect because kids love physical activity.
Yeah.
They love it. They want to do it. I've never asked my kid, hey, do you want to go run outside? Like, go run in the yard. They're never like, no. They're always like, yeah, let's go play chase. Let's go do this. Like, you know, so for me, it's been like an anchor again in my relationship with my kids for sure.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah. No, as you're talking, that's something that kind of, you know, popped in my head. I wanted to ask it. Yeah. So you're in high school, you know, you're getting your first kind of, you know, newbie gains, the attention's coming, you know, you're starting to excel at sports. I know the story isn't as simple as you go from there to Josiah Novak, True Transformation, podcast this. I know that there's some ups and downs in this story. So let's go ahead and pick up, you know,
peaks and valleys for sure. I mean, so, you know, high school was cool. It was rough in terms of home life. A lot of things had taken place during my high school years.
Was it just you and your mom at this point, or you have siblings?
So I have 5 siblings. So it was 6 of us total, right?
And you're the oldest.
I'm the oldest, yeah. And what ended up happening was most of us lived with my mom, and then a couple of them had like split time with my dad, younger ones, right? So I was basically on my own at that point. My mom was so caught up in getting her career because she never had a career, right? She was a stay-at-home mom, so she needed to go. She wanted to go start working. She was so caught up in that life. She was so caught up in basically recovering from the marriage that I was on my own. I had no rules. It went from the most hardcore military discipline household to no rules at all. Now, fortunately, I had fitness and sports, right? Because otherwise I would have gotten in a ton of trouble, right? I would have been, and I did some dumb stuff, but I never got in trouble. I was very lucky in that sense. And went to college, played a little sports in college, and then I got hurt and I started, you know, rehabilitating my shoulder specifically. And I met some people in the gym, some PTs, some people that were into therapy, studying therapy in school, and met a guy who was a personal trainer who is to this day one of my best friends. And he was just another meathead like me, right? Like another guy who was like, you know, I'm studying to be a physical therapist, but I love to lift. And let's lift. You know, and we actually we became friends at a bench press competition, shockingly. And this was after I had rehabbed and was contemplating whether I wanted to continue to play sports. I was burnt out, man. I had literally played year-round baseball from the age of 13 till, you know, like not a break. I never took a break from like 12 to basically 18, right? And, you know, it was awesome. Don't regret it at all. But I had kind of burnt myself out, and I was 20 at the time.
And you knew at that point, like baseball is really not probably the future. Like you could self-aware enough to understand. You talked about playing with some elite players. Like when you see it, you see it. Like there is a difference to those that have it. And then
I played against, you know, teammates of mine, not to be a name dropper, but like just so people know, like Ryan Zimmerman was a teammate of mine for a while, and he, you know, MVP or not the MVP, but rookie MVP for his team. And when he got drafted, I think he got drafted like 3rd overall, won the World Series recently, you know, hit a home run in the World Series. Like, I mean, these are guys that I played against or with, and there was a noticeable, like I was good, but there's like that level where you're like, yeah, you know, I could probably get to like minor league baseball and be making 10 grand a year, you know, miserable, which by the way, a lot of my friends did who were similar level of talent, and, they're miserable. You know, now I know guys who are working at random spots and they just never made it. And anyway, I got burnt out, bottom line, right? And I knew that for me to make it, there was a very small chance, and it just wasn't worth the energy anymore. And I wanted to focus on work and school and figure out what I want to do with my life, man. And so my plan was, and it wasn't the greatest plan at the time, but I was going to move to Las Vegas and go to law school at UNLV. That was my goal, right?
Okay. So still in the early 20s, law is
Yeah.
still kind of the target. Got it.
Exactly. But I went full force into working out because I had to fill that gap, right? We have these buckets in our life that if they don't get filled, sometimes we fill them with bad stuff.
Mhm.
Not playing sports, all of a sudden I had like 4 hours of my day that was like free,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, have fun, I guess, but I'm going to work and I'm going to lift and I'm going to eat and I'm going to do cardio and like I'm going to start getting fully into it.
Was that instant for you? Like when it stopped, you knew immediately, like I got to divert my focus and energy, or was there a period where you kind of lost a little bit? Because you talked about both parents really struggling with addiction. And I do believe that, there's a genetic component to, maybe call it the addictive behaviors. I don't think that you pass down alcoholism or pass down, a drug addiction, but I believe you can pass down the addictive behaviors. So did you have to struggle with that a little bit on your own before you realized, let me kind of refocus this energy, or was it quick and instant?
I'll be honest, it was instant, man.
Wow.
And I looked at it as like, so here's the thing. I was addicted to working out and I still am. Like I still love different types now, but back then I was addicted to the gym because it was tangible. It was measurable. I could literally measure my progress day by day. And I was still young. So I was making tons of, like you said, newbie gains where like, 1 week I'm benching 185. The next week I'm benching 225. Like, whoa.
Crazy, right?
And I wasn't doing things unnaturally. I was literally just riding that wave that we can take as newbies. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was getting, so the thing though, on the flip side though, was nutrition, right? So nutrition was never my strong point. For a while, I followed different methods, different bodybuilding diets and started to learn the basics, but I always had a addictive nature towards food, right? Food was an outlet for me ever since I was a kid. I remember in high school, man. So like rough time at home, I'd go to school. I'd immediately go to the cafeteria and buy like 2 or 3 breakfast sandwiches. Okay. And we're talking high calories, right? Yeah. And it would make me feel good because I had a rough morning or a rough night at home. And I'm like, this is amazing. I look forward to this. So food became an emotional crutch. Mm-hmm. For me. And that never really went away until after I got out of college and I started, I was a personal trainer for a bit and I met successful people who hired me as a trainer. And I was like, well, law school, it started to become less of a realistic goal because I realized I have severe attention deficit disorder, right? Like I'm just an active person. The more I got into activity, working out, I realized sitting still is hard for me, right? Like I have to do things with my hands and my body, and like I got to be moving. And I got into training to kind of fill the gap before I decided, do I want to go to law school or do I want to pursue another career? And in my head, though, like the reason I want to become a lawyer is because I like fairness. I'm a Libra. I like things to be equal, balanced, right? And I had this idea in my head that I was going to be like this very by the book lawyer and be fair and give people justice, right?
Those don't exist.
They don't exist, right? I started meeting lawyers. I'm like, wait a second, you guys are douchebags. Right? Awful. By the way, I have a great lawyer friend. If you ever listen to this.
Apologize to any lawyers out there. That's
a total stereotype. They're not all douchebags. But I had watched The Rainmaker. That was like my movie. Matt Damon. He was a lawyer, and I thought, man, he's doing some good in the world. That's what I want to do. Wasn't reality at the time. So, being a personal trainer, though, I started to realize I was making a difference in people's lives. It made me feel good to hear someone tell me, "Hey, like I feel better. You helped me lose weight. Like, this is awesome. Like, you're really giving me some awesome knowledge." And I'm thinking to myself, like, I thought this was like common knowledge because I had been at it now for a while. I mean, I became a personal trainer when I was like 22, 21. So I've been at it for a bit, almost 10 years. So I thought, man, this is before the internet, obviously. Like, well, there was internet, but you know what I mean? There was before, like, you could just find everything in a second.
Yeah, there weren't workouts being streamed on your Instagram where you can just literally pull one off of the internet today, or YouTube full workouts.
Oh my gosh. There was nothing. There was forums. I think we had bodybuilding forums and magazines. Magazines were the big, right?
I remember walking in with the pulled out, workout from like the Muscle and Fitness, and it's like in your pocket, like what's next? Like,
dude. All right. So hilarious story. Cause this is so meatheadish, but this is awesome. I walked into the gym many times with Arnold's encyclopedia. Like I literally walked in with this big book and I'd like put it in my locker and I'd like go back and look at stuff. I'm like, okay, let me do the push pull legs. Like, dude, it was awesome. Right. But those were the good old days or whatever. And, I became this trainer who I felt like, man, I'm really making a difference. Now I didn't know if I could do it forever because the money wasn't great. Right. I was making chump change, working terrible hours, 4:30 a.m. to 10 a.m., come back at night. It was rough. But I met these guys that I trained who were like super successful business owners, guys who were financial planners. And so one of my clients was like, hey, dude, you're good with people. You care. What you could do to make more money and actually build a career is you could sell life insurance and investments. You could go get your licenses, kind of like becoming a lawyer, but just way faster.
Yeah.
And you could start helping people build security. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Like that sounds like a good idea. And so I did. I literally did, man. I went and took all the tests, got all the licenses, did it all over the course of like 6 months, and started my own financial planning practice. Like I was literally a solopreneur, got licensed through different companies. And I was
just through like Transamerica, Primerica,
yeah,
one of those
organizations, Mutual, Liberty Mutual, like, yeah, all these places that I could sell to people and start building a book of clients. And at first it was great, man. Like I had some initial success that kind of propelled me to keep going. But then the timing of it all was just all off. Like I had zero Rolodex because I was a young guy. I didn't know a lot of people, but I was pretty resourceful. I would call on attorneys because I wanted to be a lawyer. So I would call a bunch of associate attorneys who had their number listed online. And I would just pitch them like, hey, man, you probably don't have enough life insurance. Let me come talk to you about it. Boom. Right. And then I would get in that way. But then 2008, 2009 happened. Okay. And that was like a disaster. Everybody was like, dude, I'm not buying life insurance. You're freaking crazy.
Yeah.
I'm taking all my money out of investments. I'm putting it all in safe areas. My 401k is tanking. You're 23 years old. What do you know? And I got really like bummed, man. Like for about a year, I was making nothing and I had to actually give a lot of money back because people were canceling their stuff. So I went into a deep depression, man, in my early 20s. That was kind of like the pivotal part of my life where I had nobody. I was on my own, no girlfriend, was kind of just living this lifestyle where I thought I was just going to make it and everything was going to be cool. And then I fell straight on my butt and my eating caught up to me. I started gaining weight like crazy because I just didn't care as much about my fitness. I'm starting a business. I'm struggling.
You're probably still somewhat emotional eating as well. I think so many people can relate to that either for themselves or somebody that they know. It's like, and I've experienced this, I mean, multiple times, but it's like, in order to kind of hide this pain that we're feeling emotionally, like we can eat ourselves to feel so full that the pain almost goes away because we have a different type of feeling or different type of pain coming from that. And I think so many people.
How many times I'd have a rough day at work. And actually I don't think I've ever told this part of the story, but I used to go and I would crush food, right? I would order everything and I would literally like force myself to puke afterwards, man, like all the time. Cause I feel so guilty about it, and it was so bad, man. So many times I would just, put my fingers down my throat and after eating a whole large pizza and I'd just be like, well, what am I doing? And honestly, but it was just a cycle. Cause I couldn't see past the fight I was in at that time. I was just a young guy, I didn't have the life experience, didn't have a support team. And these are all things that maybe aren't common, but I just didn't have that anchor, right? I had lost sight of what had helped me get to that point, which was even being confident enough to start my own business, right? So there was a period, man, where I gained like basically 60 pounds plus. There was times I didn't even step on the scale where I was very heavy. My estimate is I could have been like almost 80 pounds overweight because I was literally eating probably like 5,000 calories a day of just junk, day after day after day after day. Not exercising. That's the big thing. I wasn't exercising. I could.
You completely lost the anchor to fitness there. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I would do a little bit like here sporadically and, whatever, but the weight was just piling on. And I don't have like what you would call good genetics, right? I'm not like the guy who, was born with abs and looks like an Adonis. I was a guy who was like average genetics, who could easily go one way or the other with a little bit of a push. Yep. Right. So, there came a point, man, in my life where I lost everything. Basically, I lost my place. I lost my job. I gave up on the financial planning. I luckily went and got a sales job, kind of started building a sales resume. But I was depressed. I was very, very depressed. And I look at depression. So I'll be clear on this. There are people who, like myself, who went through severe depression, who contemplated suicide like I did, and like really needed professional help. And looking back, I really wish I got professional help back then, right? Probably would have turned the tide a lot faster. Luckily, I had people in my life who cared about me, right? If I didn't have those things, I don't know where I would have ended up, right? But I had friends. I had people who I knew who would check up on me and see how I'm doing. Like, hey, let's go out. Let's have fun. Like, and some people who are listening maybe don't have that. And I would strongly encourage professional help, even if it means going to a church or whatever you got to do to plug yourself in. The other side of the depression coin that I think does get tossed around a little bit is where people say I'm depressed, but really what it is they're just not doing anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're just literally like, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait till things get better. And I was doing some of that too, for sure. Right.
Yeah.
We're like,
I'm so glad you went there, and I don't want to cut you, but
no, you're good.
I want to really kind of focus in on this point. I'm so glad you're going here, because I was asked, it's probably been a month plus now since I was on a podcast. And my story, like I've been very open with it. It's something that I battled with quite significantly. I understand now, that I've stepped out of the addiction that really had me captive for 20 years. I understand what the root of it was. But while I was going through it, I had a friend that referred to it as like, you're a cyclical depression. Like it would be almost like every 18 months, like I'd fall into this hole or this trap where it felt like the entire world was collapsing on me and there's no way out of it. And on the podcast, she asked me to describe depression, and because I know it is a word that a lot of people use when they're sad or they're not feeling okay, or like you said, they're not doing anything. So they say, I'm depressed. And I'm like, no, like there is actually a point where you can't even take action. You're paralyzed by the thoughts in your own mind. You're paralyzed by the own fear in your own mind, that you feel like you're in this box and the box is slowly closing in on you from all angles. Like you question every thought, you question everything before you say it, because you're like, this is dumb, this is stupid, doesn't make any sense, why would I say this? Like you literally are like a trap or victim to your own mind. I don't know if that's a similar kind of way that you would describe it, but
here's the scary part. Well, I say scary, but looking back, man, I actually think, because I always talk about, I fell into a depression in my early 20s. I actually think I fell into it much earlier than that. And I just didn't realize, right? I think I fell into it when my parents split. And looking back, the signs were all there, right? I would have very low energy all the time. I would question everything I did. I second guess myself constantly. I noticed my performance in sports like kind of peaked right before my parents got divorced. And then it started to slowly, because I was like, I was up there in performance, and then it went slowly down, right? Slowly down.
Well, you mentioned the ADD, like you were through your teenage years, like struggling with it. Like when you're depressed, it's impossible to focus on a single thing. Like you just can't, because the minute you try to focus on one thing, it's like 97 other things are like swirling around in your mind.
Totally, man. You hit the nail on the head, man. Like, so I look at it as like, sometimes, I think sometimes people think depression is like, it's like a virus that hits out of nowhere, right? You're like, oh, geez, I'm depressed, right? Like, it's not really it. At least in my experience, it was a slow drain, right? It was like something catastrophic happened, painful in my life. As a child, you don't really know how to wrap your head around it. Have abuse leading up to that, so you're already damaged in a way. And then this whole thing happens. You're, oh my gosh, like my family, like this literally happened to my family. Like this is crazy, right? And then it's like everything you have ever believed in or question, everything you've ever thought of is now a question. You're like, I don't even know if this is accurate. I don't even know if my life is even what I thought it was. And then you start to have these battles that you don't win, right? Like first of all, the baseball thing. I always thought I was gonna be a pro baseball player. Didn't happen. Cool. All right. Thought I was gonna be a lawyer. Didn't happen. Thought I was gonna be the successful financial planner. Didn't happen. Right. Thought I was gonna be in a family that stayed together. Didn't happen. So these things start to, just these dominoes, and you're just like, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe my parents, fell out of love because of having me. I don't know. These are just questions as a kid you start to ask yourself. Obviously, looking back now, wisdom and time are great healers. But looking and being more of like a high view from compared to being in it back then, I could see that maybe the depression really started much earlier. So maybe my early 20s was more of a peak, right, of the depression. Maybe it was a tipping point, if you will. And I remember when I was there, sitting there, broke, overweight, depressed, suicidal, there was only one thing that I could even get interested in, and that was still fitness, right? There was a guy, I'm sure you've heard of Greg Plitt.
Yep.
But I was online. I was doing something online. It might've been like playing poker, because I was literally just sitting on my computer all day, like, trying to find a job, and then moving from one job to the next, and then poker and like all this stuff. And I stumbled upon Greg Plitt, and he was one of the guys back then who had like a website, and it was like, wow, this guy is huge. This is awesome. And I think it was like $1 or something to join his site. It was like super cheap. And I don't know why. I honestly don't know why I joined. It was probably because I had this little fire still somewhere burning in my brain that I could end up being someone like that. And I watched his videos, like all of them. And they were all mindset. There was no like, hey, eat this, do that. It was like, hey, dude, you need to sack up. You need to like take control of your life. Like, stop playing the victim. Like, you're depressed. Okay, go work out. Like, and I was like, holy crap, man. Like, no one's ever really talked to me like this.
Yeah.
And he looked like, anybody would want to look like that guy, obviously.
Yeah. So anybody that doesn't know who Greg Plitt is, he's
like the OG of fitness model.
He's all-time most covers, I think, right up there with Mike O'Hearn. Just shredded, chiseled.
Just unbelievable, right? Yeah. So you're just like, this guy's like not an idiot. He was like an Army Ranger or something. So like he's a beast. So I was like, wow, this is kind of a mentor from afar for now.
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned earlier too that there was like your network or your circle of friends at this time. So was this around the same time where they were supporting you, and then you kind of stumbled upon? So you had your like in-person, mentors that were, I don't know if they were more mentors or just maybe friends at that time. I think there's definitely a difference. So what did that group kind of do for you? I don't want to go on.
No, it's perfect. Yeah. What ended up happening was when I was a trainer, I had this culture of working out, right? Like, cause you got trainers and then you got your buddies who you work out with. It was kind of like this meathead group. And we stayed in touch. Right. And when I fell out of it, I saw that some of these guys were still in it and they were still doing their thing. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And we start talking, and then online forums, there was a lot of people I connected with online too, coaches, trainers. Back then, guys were pretty accessible, like you could just get on a forum and start messaging with like bodybuilders and stuff. And you're like, wow, this is awesome. So what ended up happening was I remember going and trying to just get back to the gym. Like I was, I don't even know what plan I had at the time. It was like, all right, I got a job. Okay, cool. That's step number one. Now I'm going to start trying to get my life together. And I was, once again, I picked an extreme way to get my life together. I said, I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition because it's going to drive me to do something, right? Like if I don't do this show, man, like I'm screwed, like that was my mindset back then. I was like, this is just my last shot. Silly to look back on it, but I did it. And I dieted down. I did a keto diet for like 24 weeks or something like that. It was awful. It was probably the worst thing I've ever done. And I was doing cardio, 5 a.m, doing keto. It was just, man, it was rough, but I did it. And then I gained all the weight back. Right. And then I did another show, gained all the weight back. Right. So I did 2 shows in like a matter of 3 years. And it was because back then, man, bodybuilding was like the way you got in shape, basically. Like there was no like like today you got the guys who are like anti-bodybuilding, but they're still in shape. Like, you know, it's like there was no that lifestyle. It was like either you're in or you're out, dude. You
Well,
know?
and when you were getting into bodybuilding back then, you were doing it for the bodybuilding. I mean, I first
Yeah.
competed in 2008, 2009. So like you
We were
didn't
competing around the
compete.
same time, dude.
Yeah,
That was
you the competitions weren't so that you could document your journey through Instagram and gain, 10,000 followers. It's like, no, you actually started the prep just so that you could complete the process and step on
yes.
stage. And like that was the reward, not the selfies throughout the entire,
Dude, my progress pictures were taken on I have, this is not the camera I use, but I had a
yeah.
camera like this where I took progress pictures and uploaded them for like 30 minutes and then emailed them to my coach, right? Or the forum
Yeah.
that was like helping me keep my stuff on track.
Yeah.
And so what it was, man, was like, I needed an anchor. I needed a low-hanging fruit to get my life on track. And the good news is I was getting a career in sales going, and I was still involved with fitness though. So I'd been a trainer and I'd never lost touch with a lot of clients. Like you become a trainer, you become really good friends with people you helped. And I remember communicating even through my depression with people that, like, for example, I had a young kid who I trained to get ready for the army. And dude, like he went to the army, got killed. Like he got killed in Afghanistan shortly after I had worked with him. And I stayed in touch with his family, and his brother actually moved in with me for a period of time. And it's like stuff like that. You just don't lose those relationships because you become very tight with these people, right?
Yeah. The
So
gym
I never
floor is
lost.
the gym floor is an amazing place. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I would tell any kid, 20 to 24 years old that doesn't know what he wants to do with his life, get a job working as a trainer in a gym, because you're going to develop so many things. You're going to get over, if you struggle with talking to people, you're going to get over the fear of talking to people. You're going to have to learn, lead generation and sales and closing. You have to learn customer service, because how you have to show up and actually treat your clients and, service. And you're going to get connected. That more than anything, I think, is the power of working in a gym, because you're there like at all hours. So you get your people that are coming in, first thing in the morning, which are going to be your early go-getters, highly successful people. You're going to get that lunch crowd. I would tell any trainer, like, do not leave the gym during lunch, because that's when the really successful people are in
Dude,
there.
I have
Like
so
12
many
to 2
stories.
o'clock, that 12 to
Dude,
2 o'clock window.
you're speaking the language. I remember sitting at the trainer desk in my gym, and it was lunchtime. I remember sitting there eating my food multiple times at the trainer desk. Like a lot of people would leave, go eat outside
Yep.
or whatever. And I sat there and ate because my workout time was from 10 to 11:30, right? And so I would eat afterwards, and I would just sit at the desk and eat. I can't tell you how many times I would get a client who would just walk up and go, "Hey, where do I sign up for training?" And I'm like, "Right here." Because there's nobody else there. They're like, "Hey, I
Yeah.
just need a trainer." I'm like, "I'm available." And they're like, "Okay, cool. Here's my credit card." I'm like, "What? Like, this is
Yeah.
crazy, right?" So yeah, man, you're spot on with that. That taught me so much. And once again, sometimes lessons aren't revealed until way later, right? Like I had no idea what I was learning back then. I had no idea I was learning sales, dude. I was like, the sales training was god awful. They basically were like, all right, you're gonna tell them, you're gonna do their test, you're gonna tell them they suck, and then you're gonna like present the options for them to buy. I'm like, okay, and I like would sell training somehow. Now you put me back in that gym, oh my gosh, I'm murdered, right? Like it's over for everybody. It's done because you learn so much, and it taught me sales, it taught me people, it taught me relationship building, it taught me confidence. I didn't have any confidence. I was an introvert. I'm still an introvert by nature, but I taught me how to express things and explain things and just develop relationships, man. It's such a powerful skill. So anyway, long story short, I got, into the corporate world, was still doing fitness advice on the side. I was coaching people. I was making, a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, sending people diets and workouts and these things. And I just stayed on that path, even though I had no intention of ever it becoming my career. It wasn't until I got, I would say, somewhat past the depression stage where I did 2 bodybuilding shows, and I learned so much about nutrition. Like I couldn't believe that I didn't know all this stuff up until that point, right? I was like, wow, how was I missing this the whole time? And then I started to realize that there was this whole culture online of like fitness, and Greg Plitt at the time was still the guy that I just like idolized. And this guy's like got this website and he's got his story and like he's helping so many people. And I thought, man, And I remember I had this thought. I'll never forget where I was. I was in my room. I was watching a video of his, and I said, one day, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I am going to do this. I'm going to have something that helps people with fitness because I love it. I love how I look and feel when I work out. I love how my whole life gets better. I love that I'm confident with my friends and my family. And I just, this light bulb went off. And keep in mind, I was still working corporate. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I met my wife in 2000. I should backtrack. I met friends who were doing online fitness before I met my wife, and they were doing it big. They were selling supplements. They were doing coaching and programs and all
This
these
is what
things.
year?
This is like 2011.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was like a couple years after my big, like hardcore depression stage, and just saw these guys killing it. And I said, man, like, what can I do to like get involved with this? Right. And they started, giving me little tips and giving me advice. And next thing you know, one of my friends was like, hey, I'm doing this whole like certification company. You should start a coaching company, man. He was like, you've lost a lot of weight. Like, you've really made like a story that you can help other people with. And it might not be a bad idea to start talking about it. I was like, okay. Dude, I had no idea what I was doing. I would never categorize myself as like a social media expert. But this is back when Facebook was starting to get its legs underneath it. I don't think Instagram was out yet, but it was getting there. YouTube was starting to make its way into things. And I started posting my results on bodybuilding forums, right? And people started to message me like, how'd you get so lean? How'd you diet down? How'd you lose weight? And I started just sharing my knowledge. Like, okay, well, this is what I did. Keto's not for me. I did this the next time I did a bodybuilding show, and then I gained weight back, but then I got it off, and this is what I did. And just all of a sudden, the power of information sharing started to open up doors for me. And I met my wife in 2013. Our first date, she asked me, what do you want to do? Like, what's your goal? And I said, well, I want to run an online fitness company. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm serious. She's like, aren't you in like selling technology or something at the time? I was like, yeah, I'm selling this software right now, but this is just a career for me to get to the next, the next phase, which is start this company. And I had a name at the time. I was like, it's True Transformation. And she's like, well, that sounds cool. And, if that's what you want to do, awesome. And two things in that moment, man. Like, one, someone not telling you like, you're an idiot, you're crazy, right? Like, don't do that. That's stupid, which made me fall in love with her. I was like, yes, woo, let's go. Right. And the second thing was like, well, now I got to do this. Right. Like, you tell someone publicly that you have to do something, someone like that, someone who you're like dating and you're getting serious with, you're like, well, geez, I better do this. So from that moment on, I started pouring time. Like, I had been building towards this, but I just went like full on, like, I'm not looking back. Like I said, it's like almost 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's where the work started to be really put in, man. Like, it was just nonstop from that point. And here we are today. Like, looking back, it's been daily, man, daily effort to get to where we are now. But it's been an incredible journey, man. There's obviously many more ups and downs along the way over the past 7 years, but every second of it's been worth it.
Yeah. So what were some of the first steps? Because, somebody's going to hear this and maybe for them, it's not, the dream isn't fitness. So I want to, go a little higher level, but somebody's got this dream, like, that's been placed in their heart.
Sure.
And, they've struggled, finding the right career. They're kind of stuck, maybe the salary is good, they're comfortable, they're making a great living. But it's like the dream holds them up at night. It's like, it's sitting there, but the fear of like taking the step, and taking the first few steps. So what do you say? What do you say to that person, or what are kind of some of the first steps that they could take? Not leaving the full-time thing, but how can somebody kind of get something off the ground? Because not everybody's gonna, is gonna find, a girl like yourself that, when you open it up, she's just like, I'm behind you 100%, is supporting you from day one.
Totally.
A lot of people, when they share their dream with somebody, they do get that initial, that's stupid, why would you leave this cushy thing that you got? So there's a lot of conflicting things kind of being thrown at us. So how do you get past that kind of first initial, fear step, and what are some of the first things that somebody can do?
Yeah, man. I would say if I could go back in time, one of the first things I would do, and assuming we're in today's day and age, right? Because now we have access, right? We have this like amazing opportunity to learn from others. It wasn't there when I started. We have access to people who've done it, right? Whatever you want to do. You could be a guy who wants to talk about whatever topic all day and help people with that topic, or start a business around a certain product. I would bet a lot that there's probably someone who's done it or something similar in a successful fashion. So you got to get a mentor, man. You have to get plugged in to someone who can help you get to the next step, the next level. Even if you're working, right? There's nothing holding you back now from getting plugged in to an environment or a person or a team that can start giving you the tools and the steps to get to where you want to be,
Yeah.
whether it's fitness, business, whatever. We live in an amazing time. So my first step would be to invest either time or money into someone who can help you. Like that is number one. Number two is you have to start with this whole idea that everything that happens, good or bad, is your responsibility, right? And the good news with that is like we live in a world where there's so much out of our control, right? So I tell people in our coaching program, look, the reason why I tell you to control certain factors in your day is because it makes you better at dealing with things that are out of your control, right? You focus on what you can control, which is showing up, effort, doing the daily steps, the things you can do. Because when life happens, you're going to basically have that foundation of strength that you've built up doing the things you can control day in and day out. But it starts with personal responsibility, saying like, okay, I am responsible for my results or lack thereof. And if I'm not happy doing what I'm doing right now, that's on me. There's nobody, at least I don't think in this world, there's nobody holding a gun to your head, making you do a certain role or job or whatever you're doing in your life. So if you want to make a change, you have to say, this is on me. It's my job to do this. There's nobody who's going to come save me. Like I remember moments during my life where I would just be like, well, there's got to be someone who's going to save me. Right. Like, and I'm a religious guy. And so, you might say, well, what about, God, and what about Jesus? And I say, well, look, I believe that what God gives us is action, right? He gives us the opportunity to do one little thing or some little things to start getting the ball rolling in the right direction. Gives us free will to go out and do what we need to do to get what we want, right? And there's consequences to that, good and bad. And I think the one big thing that I lacked early on in my just life was personal responsibility, right? I blamed my parents for a long time, abuse. I blamed getting hit. Oh, well, I was abused. That's why I'm out of shape. Well, maybe that's why you have some emotional issues, but there are things that can help you and there's steps you can take, right? And so I always say like, this is not me preaching or saying you suck and you got to do better. This is me saying like, I'm here to help you, right? Like me and you, we've gotten through some tough times. So there are people like us out there who are more than happy to have a conversation, to give you advice. And it's just up to you to take that step, right? So those are like the two big things, man. You got to seek out mentorship. Success leaves clues. Go out and get that. Be ultra curious. Go ask questions. Go hunt people down, man. People hunt me down all the time. Like I have people who have messaged me 100 times for, they don't want to sign up for anything. They just want to answer their question, right? They're just like, hey, how do I do this? How do I do this? And I finally am like, you know what? Let me help you, dude. Like, let me get this out of the way. Let me help you, because they're persistent. And then the other thing is though, like if you're not getting what you want, don't start pointing fingers and being like, oh, well, it's just not for me. I'm just not lucky. It's not my time, or it's someone else is better than me or whatever. No, just take that ownership, man. Like own it and then do what needs to be done to get what you want.
Yeah. What you just said there, that's like, that's like the underlying philosophy of our entire, coaching program that we're building here with Rebuilt Recovery. It's like, yeah, okay, so you've fallen into this addiction. Great. It's nobody else's fault but yourself. Own it. And now let's start to build the plan to get you out of it. And I love you said, have some small victories on a daily basis. Tell all my guys, like we want to start the morning with a series of wins. You know, if it's something as little in you know, there's a book written on this, make your bed. I mean, but there's real power behind that. You know, there's power behind just getting something done. But then when it's actually done, you actually acknowledge yourself for it and say, good job. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. And then if you can start your day, you know, the first 30 to 60 minutes with like 3-4 small victories, you've put on this like armor before you step out into the world, because you can't control the outside world. You can't control the person driving, the person that cuts you off, the person in your office that, you know, got in a fight with their wife last night, and they're going to bring that anger and frustration into the office. But if you've taken care of yourself and you've, you know, what Justin Shanks said back on episode 5, you fill your cup up first, and then whatever's left over is there for everybody else. So I love that, you know, in the mentor piece, obviously, I mean, I've talked a lot about, you know, the role that mentors have had in my life. And I mean, we met through a mutual, you know, mentor of both of ours. But so Greg Plitt was kind of the first guy for you. And you talked about kind of the virtual mentor. You know, I'll give you a chance, you know, have there been, big pivotal players in your transformation? Like, who have been some of those guys for you?
Oh, yeah. Oh man, I could. So it's crazy. I've had mentors in different parts of my life. Right. So, there was a pastor named Paul Gilmore, huge mentor of mine, when I was going through that rough patch. Right. He was my pastor at my church. And, I just by chance, stumbled upon his church. It was very small. Met in a movie theater. And he was a massive impact on my life, both from a mentorship standpoint, but also someone who had a skill set of connecting with people who I admired. And to this day, he's an amazing friend. Guys who, you might know, Jason Phillips, good friend of mine, really mentored me in the online business game. George Bryant, another online powerhouse, marketer, just a great human being. Garrett White, another huge name who's been a huge mentor. And, here's the thing, like, I believe so much in mentorship and coaching that I am constantly on the grind to find more mentors, right? Like, I don't think I can ever get enough mentorship, because there's a saying, and it's like, the moment you think you know it all is the moment that you literally like know nothing, right? It's like you can never stop seeking out more, right? Because you'll never find it all, and that's the beauty of like where we are in life, is that, yeah, we're in an information age. Yeah, we got all this stuff that we can learn about and read about and watch, but there's still never going to be a time where you know everything. And here's the thing too, true transformation. I thought about this the other day as I was planning for next year. One thing about transformation is that, we never really stop transforming, right? Like, we never really stop. We reach a new place, and then we go, hey, I want to work on something else. Like, part of my journey now is, yes, I've created a healthy lifestyle. Yeah. Okay. I've created an awesome business with amazing clients, amazing team. But I got kids, and I have a marriage, and I want those things to continue to get better, right? I want to keep transforming those into better, more powerful, godly things, like my relationship with God. Like, I want that to continue to transform. And this is not to say like, oh, sorry, the shocking, spoiler is that you're never done, right? But it should be exciting, because you'll reach new levels, and then you'll go, you know what? I need to be better over here too. Right?
Yeah, and
I need to do that.
That's what makes it exciting, though. Like,
yeah.
if you had it all figured out and you were done growing and learning and transforming, but you had another 30 years left, like, what are you going to do? You're just going to, sit there and, rot away watching Netflix. I mean, but I think that's we both have done a tremendous amount of work to get in that, called growth mindset, I guess. So I know nowadays your true transformation, your coaching, it's more of a lifestyle coaching than anything. People aren't coming to you for macros and training. They're coming to you for the principles, kind of like what Greg was teaching you back then. Was that right out of the gate? That was kind of your focus? Like, I'm going to give people all these principles that have helped me? Or when you started, was it really just about the macros and workouts?
I mean, it's definitely evolved over the years, right? I mean, you can't teach what you don't know, right? So as I progress as a man and as a husband, as a father, I realized that my success didn't come from knowing how much protein to eat every day and, like what my RPM, like all these things. Like I gained success from my principles, my values, and how I structured my life, the systems that I follow. And I realized early on, like, this is something that I just couldn't really put into words until the past few years, but it was like fitness was a metaphor for life. It was like all the things you do in fitness, you can apply to life and you'll get results in life just like you do in fitness, where consistency and filling up your cup first and, tracking what you're doing and being strict with what you're doing and making sure that you allow yourself for some fun and some balance. Like all these things apply to all parts of your life, right? And so what I tell people is like fitness is the simple way to learn how to get better at other parts of your life, right? So it's like you show up for yourself on the fitness side, the health side, the eating side, and all of a sudden you start to gain a skill set that can be applied to other things. And I tell this to people too, like who come to me who are like, hey, I'm crushing it at my job. Like I'm just making so much money, but I'm so out of shape. I had no idea what to do. And I go, no, you know what to do, right? Because you're successful, right? What did you do at your job? Well, let's see. I was very consistent, did all my calls every day. I did my to-do list. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like what you got to do to get in shape. And they're like, oh yeah. It's like, yeah, it's not that complicated, but we think it is because there's so much information out there and everybody's confused. But like I said, when I started, I kept it simple. It was like, I'm going to teach people how to work out. I'm going to teach people how to do cardio. I'm going to teach people how to track their food. And that got us a lot of success until I realized that those things only work if your entire life is set up for it to work, right? So like, are you handling your morning routines? Are you spending time with people you love? Are you doing reflection? Are you, strict with your non-negotiable time? Like these things all allow you to follow those principles that we know work. So our coaching model became much more, lifestyle based, mindset based, with, of course, all the details that go into training and nutrition, but helping people who like also want to, be better in their job or be better at business, giving them the tools to go crush those areas too, while they're getting in shape, right? That became our whole mantra of like, hey, fitness is just one piece of the puzzle, and it can be a powerful piece. It could be the finishing piece in a lot of cases. But it will definitely leak into all parts of your life. And that's what true transformation is all about, is taking fitness and using it as a tool to improve all areas of your life. And that's where we are today.
That's awesome. And I love how you use your own growth and your transformation as really the catalyst for your business. I mean, because, here you are, when you got started, maybe newly married, or you just met the wife, but you didn't have the kids, you didn't have the house and all the other responsibilities that you have now. But as your life has grown and evolved, so has your business, which I can see, which means you're going to be in this for like the long run. Like this is not Josiah is not going to fall off the face of the earth, at the end of 2020, because you're going to keep evolving, but at the same time, because you understand how to take that and apply it to your coaching and to your students, your business will continue to evolve. And I mean, I'm excited to see where true transformation goes in the next couple of years. I'm definitely going to be paying attention, and I hope the audience does as well. So, if people are interested in getting plugged in, learning more, here we'll give you a chance to kind of, plug all of your different places: podcast, book, site, social media. Just give them the big rundown of where they can connect with Josiah, and then we'll wrap it up with we have one final question we ask at the end of every podcast. But before we do that, just tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, of course, man. I appreciate it. So we do have a podcast. It's the True Transformation Podcast. We drop episodes 3 days a week. You can find me on social media pretty much anywhere. If you search Josiah Fitness, that'll pull up my profiles on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. But we always have a couple things we give any show that has me on. I wrote a book 2 years ago called Diets Suck. It was basically my love letter to diets and fad diets, but it'll give you a rundown of how simple nutrition can actually be, and how it can be enjoyable, and how you can eat foods you love and still get results. And I share a lot of mindset things in there as well. So you can get my book for free, the digital version, at least, if you email me, Josiah@thetruetransformation.com, or if you just connect with me on social and say, hey, I heard you on a podcast and I want your book. My team and I monitor our DMs all day, so we'll get you squared away. But if you're just like, hey, I just need a place to get started, I'm not sure how to do this fitness thing. I need to do it in a way that fits my busy schedule. I'm a busy person, I'm successful, or I have a family and I have a lot going on. Go to lookgoodnaked.co. Yes, it's a very, very clickbait friendly website, but lookgoodnaked.co. And you can download a 20+ page guide that's going to outline exactly how to get started. If you follow the guide, you probably don't need to hire me, but you'll probably want to hire someone to keep you on point. But lookgoodnaked.co. That will give you everything you need to get started. So check those things out.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, guys. And we'll get all these links plugged down in the show notes, the book. Reach out to him for free. We'll also link up the Amazon copy if you guys are like me and like the physical, tangible stuff. I know there's people out there that just love the old school feeling of having a book in hand. So Josiah, man, I appreciate you coming on here today and sharing your story and just, unpacking a lot of that with us. I think we got some stuff that maybe hadn't shared in a few different places. So that's always kind of cool to get that, especially with somebody that's been on as many top level podcasts, which, by the way, I mean, you've been on some pretty big names out there. What's been like your best experience or your favorite podcast that you've been a part of?
Well, the three that I always shout out because they're good friends of mine and I love their podcasts and they're awesome people. Mind Pump, Adam, Sal, and Justin, those guys are badass. And Doug, who's their producer, just incredible people. My good friend, Ryan Mickler, who I'm going to shout out. He's my client too. So I'm going to give him a little push. But he runs Order of Man. Amazing guy. And great message. And then my amazing friend, Larry Hagner, who runs the Dad's Edge podcast. He is probably one of my favorite people on the face of the earth, but he's just an incredible human being. So connect with him as well. Those are the three that I always tell people to listen to. They're at least for me, they're my favorites. So
the Mind Pump guys, they were huge for me. I don't subscribe to as much of what they put out anymore just because I have so much stuff going on. But when I was coming up and I was looking at shows, I was like, okay, I like what they're doing there. Like the way they keep the conversational flow. They're a little more edgy than I like to go, but there was definitely some stuff that I pulled from them that, I mean, I've tried to make a part of what we're doing here, just with kind of the open dialogue and just really making it, fun and infotainment and a kind of style.
Totally.
And obviously the Order of Man it's all you guys out there need to get plugged in with Ryan and for you dads. And now somewhere I was hoping to go with you, Josiah. Maybe at some point in the future we can have you on again and we can do more of the father conversation. It's definitely something I wanted to get with you. But
we'll have you on my show, man, and we'll just hash it out.
There you go, man. So as we wrap it up here, we always have one final question. You are familiar with the mission of what we're trying to do here. I mean, the show is dedicated to helping men break free from the shackles of porn addiction through the power of faith and fitness. And it really, the genesis has been my own story, my own transformation. As somebody very similar to you that comes from a family of addiction and suicide as well, and had battled with addiction his entire life. The feeling of freedom when you're able to break those chains and release that bondage, that in my eyes is what living a superhuman life ultimately means. It's more about a belief system more than anything. But I like to get every guest take on this. So how would you kind of define living a superhuman life?
Oh man, that's a phenomenal question. For me, it always starts with the people I've been blessed to be a part of, right? Like my family, I come from a very chaotic and unhealthy family environment. And, people ask me all the time, like when you get to the end of your life, like what would success look like? Right. And honestly, for me, living a superhuman life is the people I've been entrusted with, right? The people I've been given to help and to love and to look after and preside over and protect. If those people are proud of what I've done and they feel loved and they feel like I set them up for success, then I feel like I'm a superhuman all day. But that starts with my faith, right? My faith in Jesus and God, who, when I'm wondering what to do, right? When I'm questioning, like, what choice do I make? What moral stance should I take? What should I do in this situation? The answers are there, right? And that the advice is so practical. Like, people have no idea. And I try to, without being the pastor, I try to say, look, everything I do in decisions was based around the Bible because it's so applicable, you know? And that, though, is not the end of it, right? Because my favorite, one of my favorite quotes, I'm probably going to misquote it, but is faith without works is useless, basically, right? So you have your faith, which I have, but then you got to go out there and you got to work, right? You got to do your mission. What are you called to do, right? And if you can look yourself in the mirror every day and say, hey, I'm doing what I am called to do in my heart, and I'm showing up for the people that I care about, you're a superhuman all day. There's so many people out there that need people like that in their life, right? Like, there are people out there struggling right now who are like, all I need is someone who gives a crap about me, dude. Like, that's what I need. You could be that person, you know? That's a superhuman. And we need more of those people today. I mean, oh my gosh.
Amen, brother. Amen.
That's my answer. So, I mean, that's what it's all about for me is, you know, I don't care. I mean, yeah, we all want to make a ton of money. We all want to have all the cool stuff, and that's our natural human instincts. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe if you're doing good, but at the end of the day, though, if I have nothing but the love for my family, the pride that they take in what I've done, and the feeling of being protected and presided and just loved, then I'm good, man. I'm straight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your openness and vulnerability on that response. I get chills every time. Every time I ask that question. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I mean, you heard it here. I mean, just so much knowledge and actionable stuff that we could pack out of there. And I think if really, you know, the one thing, you know, the one underlying message here, perhaps it's what, you know, Josiah said there at the end. It's, you know, fitness is a metaphor for his life, but, you know, live your life in service of others and in protection of others, and just absolutely amazing. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in here to another episode of Superhuman Life. As we do at the end of every single episode, we always ask for your continued support to help us grow this network and help us grow this mission. So if this is your first time listening, make sure to subscribe right there on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on. And if there's value, you know, if you found value in today's conversation or any of the conversations that we have had here, just do us a favor and leave us a 5-star rating and written review. And most importantly, if there's somebody in your life that could benefit from hearing Josiah's story or this message, just do us a favor and help us, you know, reach them by sharing this podcast with as many people as possible. But that's it, guys. We really appreciate you tuning in. For Josiah, Frank, Rich, we love you guys.